Every year, more than 1.5 million tourists visit a place called Machu Picchu. They walk across its famous central plaza, take the same photograph with the same mountain rising behind them, and leave believing they just experienced one of the greatest wonders of the ancient world. But in 2021, two researchers proved that the name everyone uses is wrong. In 2023, an Italian team proved the plaza. Those tourists walk across is not actually a plaza. And in October 2025, a study from UCLA and Stanford revealed something hidden inside these Inca walls that no one saw coming. 3 discoveries, all peer-reviewed, all published in major journals, all ignored. This is what they found. To understand how we got here, we need to go back to the moment the mistake was made. That moment has a very specific date. On July 24, 1911. On that morning, a 35-year-old Yale history lecturer named Hiram Bingham III stood on the banks of the Urubamba River in the Peruvian Andes. He had spent weeks cutting through mountain jungle, sleeping in mud, and interrogating every farmer and trader he met about ancient ruins. His actual target was Vilcabamba, the legendary last capital of the Inca Empire, the place where the final Inca ruler made his last stand against the Spanish. Bingham wanted to find it, map it, and bring the story back to Yale. He was not having much luck. The trails were brutal. The locals were vague. His team was exhausted and growing skeptical. Bingham was under pressure. Yale had provided funding and expected results. He had promised to find the lost city of the Inca, and with each passing week in the jungle, that promise looked harder to keep. Then, at a small camp near a river bend, a farmer named Melchor Arteaga mentioned that there were old stone ruins high above the valley, up on the ridge between 2 mountain peaks. For a small fee, Arteaga offered to take Bingham there. Most of the expedition team declined the hike. The morning was cold and rainy. The route was steep and dangerous, but Bingham went anyway, accompanied by Arteaga and a military escort named Sergeant Carrasco. They crossed the Urubamba on a bridge made of lashed-together logs, the kind of crossing where one wrong step would send you into rapids that killed without mercy. Then they climbed, straight up through dense cloud forest, for hours. When Bingham reached the ridge, what he found stopped him cold. Stone terraces stacked up the mountainside in perfect rows, walls fitted with such precision that the joints between the blocks were nearly invisible. Temples with trapezoidal doorways, fountains connected by channels cut directly into bedrock. An entire city, abandoned and swallowed by vegetation, sitting above the clouds at nearly 2,400 meters elevation. Bingham needed a name. He asked the people around him what this place was called. One of his guides used the words Machu Picchu. Bingham wrote those words in his notebook, and from that single moment in a rain-soaked jungle, the name entered the permanent record of human history. When he returned to the United States, Bingham contacted the National Geographic Society. They funded his next expedition, and in April 1913, National Geographic magazine dedicated an entire issue to what they called one of the most remarkable archaeological discoveries of the 20th century. The photographs were extraordinary. Stone walls emerging from clouds, terraces stepping down into valleys that seemed to have no bottom. The story was irresistible. A Yale scholar hacking through the jungle, stumbling upon a lost city of the Inca. The world fell in love with the name Machu Picchu. Textbooks printed it. Tour companies branded around it. Peru built railway lines to reach it. UNESCO registered it as a World Heritage Site under that exact name. Governments put it on stamps. Airlines put it on posters. The name appeared in 100 languages, on 1 million postcards, in every encyclopedia ever published. And for 110 years, nobody went back and checked whether the name was actually right. 3 discoveries. We start with the first. Discovery 1 of 3. The name. In 2021, a paper appeared in the journal Machu Picchu, one of the most respected publications in Andean archaeology. The authors were Donato Amado Gonzalez, a historian at Peru's Ministry of Culture based in Cusco, and Brian S. Bauer, a professor of anthropology at the University of Illinois, Chicago. Between them, they had spent decades studying Inca history, colonial archives, and the place names of the Peruvian highlands. Their conclusion was blunt. The Inca never called this city Machu Picchu. The evidence pointed to a different name entirely, Huayna Picchu, or simply Picchu, and the proof was not ambiguous. It came from 4 independent sources spanning more than 400 years. The first source was a Spanish colonial document from 1588, written less than 60 years after the Spanish conquest of Peru. In that document, indigenous residents of the Vilcabamba region described their intention to return to a town they called Huayna Picchu, not Machu Picchu. The name is written clearly in context, referring to a settlement in the highlands. This document had been sitting in colonial archives for more than 4 centuries before Gonzalez and Bauer connected it to the ruins above the Urubamba. The second source was arguably even more damaging. A published atlas from 1904, printed 7 full years before Bingham ever set foot in Peru, contained a direct reference to the ruins of an Inca town called Huayna Picchu. The correct name was already in print. It was already on a published map, available in libraries, accessible to anyone who cared to look. Bingham either never found it or never took it seriously. The third source was Bingham himself. His own field notes from 1911 reveal that while he was still in the city of Cusco, preparing for his expedition, local guides told him about ancient ruins called Huayna Picchu. He wrote that name down in his journal. But days later, when he actually reached the site with Arteaga, a different guide used a different name, Machu Picchu. And for reasons that remain unclear over a century later, that was the name Bingham chose to report back to Yale and National Geographic. The fourth source came from 1912, when Bingham returned for his better-funded second expedition. During that trip, a young man, the son of a local landowner who had grown up in the shadow of these ruins his entire life, told Bingham directly that the site was called Huayna Picchu. For the second time in 2 years, someone tried to correct the record. And for the second time, Bingham ignored the correction. 4 sources, 4 separate occasions when the correct name was available. And none of them changed the outcome. So what do these 2 names actually mean? In Quechua, the language of the Inca Empire, Picchu means mountain peak, Machu means old, Huayna means young or new. So Machu Picchu translates to old mountain peak, and Huayna Picchu translates to young mountain peak. Here is the detail that makes this matter. If you have ever seen a photograph of this site, and you almost certainly have, you know there are 2 prominent mountains in the frame. The ruins sit on a saddle ridge between them. The taller, broader mountain behind and above the ruins, the one furthest from the city, is the peak that locals called Machu Picchu, the old peak. It is the background mountain, the one most tourists barely notice. The sharp, dramatic rock tower that rises directly behind the ruins, the one that appears in every single tourist photograph ever taken of this site. The peak that defines the entire visual identity of the place. That mountain is called Huayna Picchu, the young peak. It is the mountain the city was built beneath. It is the mountain the Inca looked up at every single day. Bingham named the city after the wrong mountain. He confused the name of the distant background peak with the name of the city at its feet. And because Yale published it, because National Geographic printed it in a magazine read by millions, and because the world was so captivated by the romance of a lost city found in the clouds, nobody questioned the name for over a century. Gonzalez and Bauer did not hedge their conclusion. They wrote that there was an initial misunderstanding of the local toponyms at the time of Bingham's first visit, and that this misunderstanding has been uncritically repeated over the past century. Bauer was even more direct in interviews after the paper was published. His exact words were that there is really no debate about it. No debate. 4 sources say the same thing: Spanish colonial records, a published atlas, Bingham's own handwriting, and a local resident's direct correction. And yet, as of today, Peru's National Tourism Authority has issued no correction. UNESCO has not updated its World Heritage Registry. The tickets, the signs, the guidebooks, the Wikipedia page, the Google Maps pin, all of them still say Machu Picchu. A billion-dollar tourism industry has been built around a name that a Yale explorer misidentified in 1911. And once a name is worth that kind of money, a journal article is not going to change it. That was discovery number 1. The name on every ticket, every postcard, and every documentary ever made about this site is a 110-year-old mistake. Proven in 2021. Ignored ever since. But the name turned out to be just the surface. Because discovery number 2 is not about what we call this place. It is about what we are actually standing on. Discovery 2 of 3. The ground beneath your feet. On November 7th, 2023, a paper appeared in Scientific Reports, one of the most widely read journals published by Nature. The research team was international. It was led by Nicola Massini from CNRISPC in Italy and Rosa Lasaponara from CNRIMAA, also in Italy, with collaborators from ISPRA, the University of Warsaw in Poland, and Peru's Ministry of Culture. Their target was specific. The Plaza Principal, the large, flat, green open space at the heart of Machu Picchu, where the eastern urban sector and the western temple sector meet. If you have ever seen drone footage of the site, the Plaza Principal is the wide grass rectangle in the middle, surrounded by stone buildings on every side. It is where tourists congregate. It is where group photographs are taken. It is visually and architecturally the center of the entire city. Every year, well over 1 million people walk across this ground. They stand on it. They sit on it. They assume it is exactly what it appears to be: a flat public square, a gathering place the Inca leveled because it was convenient. And until this study, nobody knew what was beneath it. The reason nobody knew is that the Plaza Principal is protected under UNESCO World Heritage regulations, and those regulations are absolute. You cannot dig. You cannot excavate. You cannot drive a shovel or a drill into that ground without violating international heritage law. For decades, this meant that whatever was beneath the plaza would stay there, unknown and untouchable. But this team did not need to break the ground. They brought 5 remote sensing technologies that could see straight through it. Satellite imagery from the GeoEye platform, capable of resolving surface features at sub-meter accuracy from orbit. Drone-based photogrammetry to create centimeter-precise 3-dimensional models of the plaza surface. Ground-penetrating radar, which sends electromagnetic pulses into the earth and reads the reflected signals to map buried structures. Geomagnetic surveying, which detects variations in the magnetic properties of subsurface materials. And geoelectric resistivity mapping, which measures how electrical currents flow through different types of soil and rock to reveal hidden boundaries underground. 5 technologies, 1 target, and the results were not subtle. The satellite images provided the first clue. Rosa Lasaponara noticed crop marks on the surface of the plaza. Crop marks are subtle variations in how vegetation grows, caused by buried structures underneath the soil. When plant roots encounter stone, or when the earth below holds more or less moisture than the surrounding ground, the plants above grow slightly differently. Taller in some spots, shorter in others, greener here, yellower there. From the ground, these differences are invisible, but from orbit, on high-resolution multispectral satellite imagery, they reveal the outlines of things that have been buried for centuries. The crop marks on the Plaza Principal showed something nobody expected: the outline of a large, contained basin beneath the surface. If you are finding this valuable, take a second and hit like and subscribe. We cover discoveries like these every week. The ground-penetrating radar confirmed the finding and added critical detail. Beneath the flat grass that tourists walk across, the team found irregular, jagged, broken rock formations. Not smooth, natural bedrock, not foundation walls of a collapsed building. The kind of rough, fractured stone surface you find at the bottom of an ancient quarry, where blocks have been systematically cut away and hauled to the surface. What emerged from the combined datasets was a 4-phase construction history that nobody had ever suspected. Phase 0. Before the Inca built anything, the natural saddle between the two peaks contained a depression that collected rainwater and runoff, a natural drainage basin. In practical terms, a reservoir formed by the landscape itself over thousands of years. Phase 1. When the Inca began constructing the city, they needed stone, enormous quantities of granite to build walls, temples, terraces, staircases, and water channels. The most efficient source of raw material was directly beneath their feet. They quarried the reservoir, cutting blocks of stone from the exposed bedrock of the basin itself. The city was literally built from its own center. Phase 2. Once the Inca had extracted enough building material, they turned their engineering skills on the depleted basin itself. They installed a sophisticated drainage system of channels and conduits, designed to control and redirect water flow through the depression. This was the kind of precision hydraulic engineering that the Inca had perfected across their entire empire. Phase 3. The transformation. They filled the drained, channeled basin with earth, stone rubble, and construction debris. They leveled the surface, compacted it, covered it with topsoil, and created the flat, open space that has fooled every visitor for 600 years. The Plaza Principal was born, not as an original design, but as the final phase of a construction sequence that began with a pond and ended with a public square. La Saponara described it in measured, precise language. Underneath the present square, their investigations revealed the presence of a reservoir that was later turned into a quarry, and subsequently drainage works were carried out with the prospect of filling it in to create the plaza. Massini called it a construction history, as surprising as it is unknown. Consider what this tells us. The most photographed open space at one of the most famous archaeological sites in human history was engineered from scratch. It was not a natural flat area that the Inca simply chose to use. It was manufactured, layer by layer, over generations. A reservoir became a quarry. A quarry became a drainage project. A drainage project became a plaza. 4 layers of Inca ingenuity, stacked on top of each other, completely invisible to every person who has stood on that ground for the past 6 centuries. And the only reason we know is that an Italian-Polish research team had the curiosity to point a satellite and a radar antenna at a patch of grass that everyone else simply walked across. No official guide at Machu Picchu mentions any of this. No information board, no placard. The study was published in Scientific Reports, part of the Nature Portfolio, one of the most respected scientific publications on Earth. And it has had zero visible impact on how this site is presented to the 1.5 million people who visit it every year. 2 revelations down. The name is wrong. The ground is hiding a construction history that took 6 centuries to uncover. But there is a third finding, and this one changes something fundamental about how we understand what the Inca were actually building. It was published so recently that we may be the first to bring it to you anywhere. Discovery 3 of 3, the walls were instruments. In October 2025, Professor Stella Nair at UCLA, working with researchers at Stanford University, published findings that challenge one of the most basic assumptions about Inca construction. The assumption was that these buildings were designed primarily for structural strength, shelter, and defense. The study focused on a specific Inca structure along the Capac Nan. That name refers to the Great Inca Road, the royal highway network that once stretched over 30,000 kilometers across the Andes, connecting every major city in the empire from modern-day Colombia all the way south to Chile. To put that distance in perspective, 30,000 kilometers is roughly the circumference of the Earth at the equator. The Inca built this without iron, without the wheel, and without draft animals capable of pulling wagons. They carved it into cliffs, suspended it across canyons on rope bridges, and paved it through deserts and cloud forests. UNESCO recognized the Capac Nan as a World Heritage Site in 2014, calling it one of the most extraordinary feats of engineering in human history. Along this highway, the Inca constructed hundreds of way stations, storehouses, administrative centers, and ceremonial buildings. These were not simple shelters. They were engineered structures, built to the same exacting standards visible at major Inca cities. And it was at one of these buildings that Nair's team made their discovery. The building they analyzed is located in the Huaytara region of Peru. From the outside, it looks like countless other Inca structures: precisely fitted ashlar masonry, trapezoidal doorways, clean geometric lines, the same architectural vocabulary visible at sites throughout the highlands. Nothing about its exterior suggested it was anything unusual. But when the team performed a detailed analysis of wall thickness, room dimensions, opening placements, and interior geometries, they found something that no one had formally identified before. The building was not optimized for structural performance. It was optimized for sound. The proportions of the interior spaces, the angles at which the stone walls met, the size and precise placement of doorways and windows, every feature worked together to capture, channel, amplify, and project the human voice. The building was functioning as an acoustic instrument, constructed entirely from stone, not as a metaphor, but as a measurable physical reality. And here is the finding that separates this from a curiosity and turns it into a revelation about Inca engineering philosophy. The researchers discovered that the architects had deliberately accepted structural weaknesses in order to achieve the acoustic properties they were designing for. The walls could have been built thicker. The openings could have been made smaller. The rooms could have been shaped in ways that better resisted earthquakes and weathering. But making any of those changes would have disrupted the acoustic performance the architects were targeting. So they chose sound over safety. They prioritized what the building could do over how long it would stand. And they did this with enough intentional precision that researchers using modern acoustic analysis tools can still detect and measure their design choices 5 centuries later. Nair stated directly that sound was deeply valued and that it was an incredibly important part of Andean and Inca architecture. This should not surprise us as much as it does. The Inca Empire was held together not by a written language, because they did not have one, but by spoken word, ritual performance, and acoustic communication. Their system of governance depended on oral transmission of laws, histories, and religious practices. Their ceremonies involved dolphin chanting, drumming, and the playing of wind instruments made from bone and ceramic. Sound was not decoration. It was infrastructure. It was how knowledge moved through the empire. The quipu, the knotted string devices that the Inca used for record-keeping, had to be read aloud by trained specialists. Messages across the empire were carried by relay runners called chasqui, who memorized verbal instructions and shouted them from station to station. In a civilization where nothing was written down, the ability to project, amplify, and control sound was not a luxury. It was a necessity of governance. And now we know they were engineering their buildings to do exactly that. Now consider what this means for Machu Picchu. The city occupies one of the most acoustically dramatic natural settings imaginable. A narrow granite ridge between two peaks, surrounded on all sides by near vertical valleys that form natural echo chambers. The Urubamba River thunders through the canyon below. Wind channels through stone corridors and doorways at an elevation where air pressure, temperature, and humidity shift throughout the day, constantly changing how sound behaves in enclosed spaces. If the Inca were deliberately engineering buildings as acoustic amplifiers along the Royal Road, and if Machu Picchu was among the most sacred ceremonial centers in the entire empire, as every piece of archaeological evidence suggests, then the question becomes obvious. Were the temples and ritual spaces at Machu Picchu designed according to the same acoustic principles? The researchers believe the answer is likely yes. They have indicated that the acoustic engineering they documented was not an isolated case, but part of a broader design tradition applied across Inca ceremonial architecture. But here is the frustrating reality. This has never been formally tested at Machu Picchu itself, not because the technology does not exist. It does. Not because the researchers lack interest. They clearly have it. But because the same UNESCO protections that prevented excavation of the plaza also limit the kind of controlled testing that rigorous acoustic analysis sometimes requires. The hypothesis is published. The tools are available. The most important Inca ceremonial site in the world sits there, surrounded by natural amplification chambers, never once tested for the very acoustic properties that have now been documented at a less famous site down the road. And that brings us back to the question that connects all three of these discoveries. Why does nothing change? We know the name is wrong. We know exactly when the mistake was made, who made it, and which four sources prove it beyond any doubt. We know the plaza hides an entire construction sequence beneath its surface, 4 layers of engineering that an Italian-Polish team revealed using 5 different technologies without breaking a single regulation. We know the Inca engineered their walls to manipulate the behavior of sound, and that they valued acoustic performance enough to build weaker structures to achieve it. 3 findings, 3 different research teams, 3 respected peer-reviewed journals, all freely accessible to anyone with an internet connection. And yet the tickets still say, Machu Picchu. The tour guides still call the plaza a plaza. The walls have never been tested for acoustic properties. The story told to 1.5 million visitors per year has not been updated by a single sentence. Why? Because Machu Picchu is not just an archaeological site. It is a brand. It is the single most valuable cultural tourism product in South America. Peru's economy depends on it. Cusco's entire service industry revolves around it. Airlines, hotels, train operators, guide agencies, restaurants, and souvenir shops all profit from the current version of the story. And the current version is simpler, more romantic, and easier to sell than the truth. Changing the name would mean rewriting every document in every language, in every government office and tourism database that references the site. Updating the plaza story would raise uncomfortable questions about what else has been missed. And testing the walls for acoustic engineering would require equipment and access that UNESCO's rules make difficult to authorize. None of these are scientific objections. They are bureaucratic ones, financial ones. The researchers did their job. The institutions that manage the site have not done theirs. And this is the deeper lesson that connects all 3 discoveries. The Inca built this city with a level of engineering precision that modern scientists are still uncovering, 600 years after the last stone was placed. They carved drainage systems so effective that they continue to function perfectly through centuries of earthquakes, landslides, and tropical monsoons. They fitted granite blocks together so tightly that no mortar was needed, creating joints so precise that rainwater cannot penetrate them after 600 years of storms. They built rooms where the stone walls themselves became acoustic instruments, and they chose to accept structural risk to achieve that performance. They did all of this on a narrow ridge at 2,400 meters above sea level, surrounded by vertical cliffs and one of the most seismically active zones on the planet. Without iron tools, without the wheel, without a written language to pass construction manuals from one generation to the next. And we, with our satellites and our radar and our peer-reviewed journals and our international heritage bureaucracies and our billion-dollar tourism budgets, cannot manage to call their city by its correct name. 3 discoveries, a 1588 document and a 1904 atlas, prove the name is wrong. 5 remote sensing technologies proved the plaza is a filled-in quarry. And a 2025 acoustic study proved the Inca engineered their walls to shape sound itself. All published, all verified, all waiting for someone to act on them. The Inca called this city Machu Picchu. It is time the rest of us caught up. We started this video with 3 discoveries: a wrong name, a hidden construction history, and walls that were built to sing. All 3 were published. All 3 were verified. And all 3 are still waiting for someone with the authority to act on them. If you want to see what else is hiding beneath the ancient sites of South America, the video on your screen right now will take you deep into the Amazon, where deforestation revealed something carved into the earth that should not exist. If you have not subscribed yet, now is the moment. We have much more to uncover.